Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
My name is Art Benjamin, and I'm a pickle-brained alcoholic. I had other addictions besides alcohol: pills, Binaca, chlorets, Sensen. I tried to drown out the smell I thought I was putting out. But it turned out that I didn't smell. My wife didn't even know how much I was drinking. And I want to thank Vince for asking me to share tonight, and I thank all of you for being here. And I want to thank Donna for a nice talk, and I enjoyed it. I also hated myself, like she said, and that's not a rare thing. It's a common thing in AA talks that I've heard over the years. If I'd have stayed in AA when I came in September the 18th, 1968, I'd have 22 years. But unfortunately, I went 6 years to meetings to please my wife and to see what was going on. And I didn't think I had a problem because I had money, property, prestige. And I was a kingpin in the industry that I was in, and I was a kind of a good-going Joe that I got along with everybody. And I had a violent temper that I had to curb when I was 15 years old. I was attacked by a couple of six-footers that used to come around and always picked on me, and I picked up a block of concrete and threw it and caught one of them in the back of the head and damn near killed him. And from that point on, age 15, I learned to curb my temper. And I see that cropping up one of my grandchildren now and my youngest son once in a while. And it's a violent streak that I guess in one of our genes that developed. I came from an immigrant family. I was born and raised in the state of California here, and grew up in Fresno. And my early life, as I can think back, was living in a tent in Fresno with 110 degrees in the summer and about 25 degrees in the winter, and the rain used to rain on the dirt floor, and the water used to run through the tent. And my cot that I had 4 little short legs and used to sink in the ground, and then of course the mats would get wet, and I'd be accused of wetting the bed. And many times I was scolded and spanked for that. But at one thing, it made a resolve for me that I was not going to be able to be under the influence of anybody but myself. I wanted to have my own skill, my own trade. My dad didn't have any kind of a skill, and all he had was farm work, and he did have some leather working experience, but there was no work back there in 1915 or 18 or 20. And so he had to work as a farmer. And I never wanted that. At age 12, I was driving a Model T Ford. I was tall for my age, and I was able to manipulate the pedals. By watching my dad drive, I was able to pick it up and be able to drive it. In fact, I remember cranking it up, had a crank then, no self-starters, and I reversed it out of the little shed we had, and I put it in low gear and I shifted it into high, and went around the mile square blocks as we had then. And somebody got behind me with another car and blew the horn. I almost flipped that thing to get out of his way. It startled me. But that's where I started my background in automotive. And I also worked on a lot of pumping plant engines around the countryside there. People used to have trouble starting those single-cylinder pumps for pumping irrigation water. And I finally figured out the make and break spark system that they had in that time. And I was able to take it apart and clean the contacts and get them running. So I developed a reputation. 12, 13, 14 years of age, I was doing things like that. At 15, I quit high school and went to work in the garage, worked for nothing, to learn the business. And when I was about 17, I guess, we moved to Los Angeles. And my dad got a job at the Southern Cal Edison Company, and I got a job in the garage. And I worked there about a year, and they realized that I knew more than the owner's cousin was the manager, and he didn't know from nothing. There was 5 mechanics in that shop, and they were running an age from 35 to 55. And I was, I think, 18 by then, and I became manager over these guys. So you can imagine the amount of shit I had to take. And unfortunately for me, I was able to solve problems that they gave up on. So that was a pattern of my life, solving problems that everybody else gave up on. I had such an ego developed by then that I couldn't allow myself to fail. I'd work late at night in order to fix whatever the problem was, and invariably I got it fixed, ready to go the next morning. And that whole pattern followed me in my whole business career up until the time that I got in this program and realized that that wasn't necessary. I've had a number of miracles happen, which I'll get into. I went to this AA meeting at the Brentwood workshop Thursdays, and about 2 or 3 or 4 meetings a month with my wife. She'd go there early and save us seats, and on the way home from work I would just sit there and take it all in. Well, I heard something about hallucinations at that meeting that I'll relate to a little later that I didn't know that I'd heard. So we never know what we hear at these meetings. All of you may or may not hear something, or you may hear something, you'll think about it a year or 2 or maybe way later down the road, because this thing here had happened 6 years later than what I heard. And then I realized that I was having a problem. As I grew up in this automotive service business, I went into business for myself at 21, and I got married when I was 21 and a half. And then my wife and I decided that rent receipts was no way to go, so we bought a house in the middle of the Depression. And in those days, you could buy a house for $3,000 or like $300 down, but nobody had $300. So we barely scraped it together. We bought a house. We lived in that house for 17 years. And during this time, this business developed. I got to know a lot of the faculty at USC. I was right across the street from USC. And during the 1940s, early 40s, they asked me to do a project for them. I didn't know what it was all about. They asked me to build a remote-controlled engine. And that was just like the Star Wars, like is today, which I did. And then I installed that machinery in a project called the Human Centrifuge, which rotated a 30-ton flywheel mounted on a 9-ton shaft, a 10-ton shaft with a 9-ton cage. The idea was to test prospective pilots to make sure that they could stand 3.5 times the force of gravity. Call that 3.5 Gs. And if they passed that test on this spinning wheel, then they were promoted and went on ahead for pilot training. If they didn't, then they made something else out of them. And here I was, just a grease monkey, so to speak, with no high school education. And on that project, I learned a lot about engineering. Now, the school has engineers, all kinds of them, but they delegated that job to me because it was automotive related. And this particular Dr. Drury, the chief physicist of the project, had done a lot of work for his car and solved a lot of problems. He had a lot of confidence in what I was doing. Well, that thing kept me out of the war. I had a presidential deferment, and I was in that project for about 7 years, and I carried a 45 Colt automatic 24 hours a day. Twice I was attacked, and twice I was able to repel or drive these guys away by merely pointing the gun at them. In fact, I pointed the gun at the head of the ringleader, and they all scattered. So these are the experiences I've had, and my ego drove me to some terrible extremes in both of my business and my personal life. We got married in 1931, and last June here we celebrated our 59th wedding anniversary, continuous to the same lady, and only in sobriety has she gotten to be a better lady in my eyes. I used to say that she was my favorite bitchy witch, and but she developed into a hell of a nice person. I didn't know she was that nice a lady till I got sober And she had 11 years on the program with Overeaters Anonymous, and then she's got 16 years in Al-Anon. I went into Al-Anon the same time she did. So between the two of us, we have about 43 years of program between us. I don't know what's all good or all bad, but at least we're both stayed married, and we both have our own life, things we do, and we have our own program, and then we do a lot of things together. And as time went on, this house that we bought, and we made a model home out of it, my business grew, and after the war, we got into a problem with urban renewal. Urban renewal wanted to rebuild or develop that area around the University of Southern California. Meantime, we kept buying up lots as it came for sale, so we wound up owning a whole square block there on Vermont Avenue between 37th Place and 37th Drive. And that happened to be the largest single chunk of land in the whole 160-acre project. And urban renewal kept offering us money, and very peanuts more or less. And we resisted, took them about 10 years, and finally they came out with an offer that we felt acceptable. And meantime, during this period, I realized that my drinking developed during the 40s. I was in my late 30s, early 40s, and what I noticed looking back, and in fact at that time I noticed that having 2 or 3 scotch and sodas for dinner or before dinner or prior was a normal pattern. I didn't drink during the day. But around the late 40s, early 50s, I discovered that I needed a can of beer for lunch, and then one would lead to 2 or 3, and then it graduated till I had 1 in the morning at 10 o'clock, and 2 or 3, maybe 3, 4 in the afternoon, plus scotch and sodas about 5 o'clock. We'd crack open, they'd close the doors, we'd crack open the bottle of scotch. In fact, 2 or 3 of us in the management liked scotch, so that's what we drank. We'd kill a bottle of scotch every night. And this is a pattern that continued for a long time. Nobody really got drunk or got sloppy. But when this urban renewal battle occurred, I was under tremendous pressure to fight for my rights. And I was self-righteous as hell. And I mean, I had an ego, too, that I had to feed. So I was involved in the battle of the urban renewal, tried to either stop them or give us a fair price. And the area was pretty well mostly black by then. And they wanted to recall the black councilman and have me run for councilman. And I didn't go for that idea at all. But the thing is, I spoke at a lot of public meetings, both at City Hall and at USC campus, and they'd have these public hearings to get the public feedback. And normally, somebody talked for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, they'd shut him off because he'd drift off the subject. Well, I went there 2 days later. In spite of my drinking, I was still doing some pretty good thinking. It wasn't all stinking at that time. And I made up a questionnaire, 28 questions, and I held a mic from 11:30 till about 2:30 because I wanted answers to these questions. I stuck to the subject, and they could not kick me off of that panel. Well, of course, I got plastered all over the radio, the newspapers, and TV. And boy, my ego, it just went to town. And looking back, I had started drinking like 6 in the morning and take about 2 or 3 big snorts before I left the house, and then I'd have another snort or 2 at the office. And then before I went to some of these meetings, I'd gulp and chug a lug, oh boy, about 2 fingers like that. And so I went there charged, but you know, it's funny, I never passed out, I never got dribbly or never got vague in what I was saying. I never acted like a real alcoholic. And it's amazing to me that I was able to handle that because I ate a lot of food and nuts and raisins and stuff like that when I drank. So what happened, I had a 44 waist, and I weighed 210, 215 pounds in the process. And my face was larger, and I had more hair too, by the way. And one reason I'm bald-headed now is I grew up on a short bed, and that was kind of hard on the head. And the alcohol got me through a lot of things that I don't know what I would have done without the benefit of the energy and the assistance that the alcohol turning to sugar gave me, because I drank a lot and I ate a lot, and during the process I put on weight and it kept me stable. And I took a lot of tranquilizer pills. In those days they had all kinds of pills, some of them not on the market, And the friendly doctor we had, she'd just pull the drawer and tell me, help yourself, and then tell me what you like or what's working or whatever report I could give her. And that's what I did. I'd take some that was slow acting, some quick acting, some delayed action. And so I just maintained an even keel. I was driving about 150 to 200 miles a day on sales trips to different parts of the state and promoting my transmission parts and the sales. I had salesmen working under me. I had 17 employees running about $400,000 or $500,000 a year, and I kept looking at them and I said, how the hell can I be an alcoholic? I went to these meetings and all I heard was disaster stories: divorces, bankruptcies, no jobs, 502s, drunk tanks, sleeping in the gutter, you name it, the whole gamut of the program. And then I kept saying to myself, oh, you can't be an alcoholic. And the family doctor used to always tell me from way back, oh, you'll never be an alcoholic. You'll never be an alcoholic. You haven't got the temperament for an alcoholic. And the funny thing is, we used to drink together. Many times on the way home, I'd stop over there and just a kibitz over there, and we'd wind up killing a half a bottle of scotch, maybe all of it. It was after her hours. And we'd sit and talk till 9, 10 o'clock at night. My wife's sitting home waiting, what the hell happened to this guy? And she'd eventually wind up calling her office, and sure enough, I was there. And she'd get all bent out of shape and get mad at me, and when I'd come home, I'd wait till she was in bed. I knew about what time she went to bed. Then I'd take my shoes off, and I'd sneak in the bed without her even knowing what time I came in. And then in the morning, I'd leave at like 5:30 or 6, so she never saw me for a week. That's a hell of a life. I'm surprised she stuck around. And but eventually we settled a deal with Urban Renewal. They paid, and I moved into a bigger building and larger crew and larger stock and larger everything. And that's when I realized that I needed that bottle. I knew that the alcohol had me because I couldn't do without it. And I had such a low self-esteem of myself, just like Donna said herself. She hated herself, and I hated myself with a passion. And I just couldn't stand it because everybody told me from childhood up, you'll never amount to damn, you'll never amount to good or nothing, whatever. My aunt, my uncle, my cousins, and everybody's telling me that. So I just believed that I was no good. And yet I overachieved to prove to the world or to myself that I could do it, whatever it was. And I know I qualified for 2 engineering degrees, and they wouldn't give them to me because of the fact that I had to go back to high school and finish up some courses that I had not taken. So later on in sobriety, I realized that, hey, I didn't need those degrees. I didn't need a damn thing because I knew what I could do. Because in the program, I learned to love myself. It was 5 years in this program before I could look in the mirror and say, hey, I like you, and have some self-esteem that I sadly lacked in all my growing up. And I think that's pretty typical characteristic of most of us in Alcoholics Anonymous, because I've heard it many times. People hate themselves, and there's some reasoning behind the background in their growing up that brings this out. And when you drink, it seems to amplify that, hating yourself. One of the things that happened when I was a child, about 15 years old, I fell out of a car and I smashed the bones in this left wrist. There's about 14 bones in that joint here. And being on the farm, we didn't have any doctors or access to anything, so I just wrapped it up and thought it was a sprain and let it go at that. In 1971, it started aching. It got real bad. I could use it, but not to any extensive degree. I could handle it as a mechanic holding nuts and bolts and turning the screwdriver and thing, but I had no strength. Well, in 1971, I had surgery, and they told me that they might have to amputate this hand, about 90% chance they'd have to amputate it, because they could not do anything with those calcified bones. And I said, no amputation, nothing, period. And so they, whatever they did, they detoured the nerves or tendons or whatever, and then I had to wear a brace. I couldn't operate by itself, because that would create more problems. So I wore a brace for 3.5 years. And all through the 60s and 70s, there was a lady preacher, a faith healer by the name of Catherine Coleman. They used to come to the shrine every last Sunday of each month from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And that shrine holds about 7,000 people. There used to be about 5,000 outside. We used to watch her prancing across the stage and dancing around and talk about healing people. People would throw their crutches away. They'd bring them in on stretchers and they'd walk out, and all kinds of things. And you first were skeptical. And I found out that being skeptical is okay, because God disregards your skepticism when you have a healing or when he's ready to take care of you. Because we finally went there to one of the meetings. It was the 19th of March, 1974. And I sat there in that chair, third row of seats down from the top balcony. And at 3:30, she pointed a finger at me and she says, the healing of the arthritis of the left hand has taken place. And I knew it was me. She pointed that finger way downstage. That's a long ways down there. And I knew it was me, and I started wringing my hands. And I started crying, I started sweating, and I started getting up, and I fell back in the seat. I went through all the symptoms of a paralytic, like trying to get up and falling down. And I couldn't go down there to claim my healing. And I had to throw that brace away, and today I can do anything with this left hand that I can do with my right hand, because God heals things perfect. It looks like hell, and it feels like hell in a sense, but it works. And that's all we ask. Let God do it, and it will work. And the same thing happened with my disease of alcoholism. As I said earlier, the thing progressed more and more and more, and I got to the point of drinking a quart, sometimes 2 quarts a day. And I didn't show any symptoms of alcohol. I never passed out. I never got drunk. And I never wobbled or staggered. I never stuttered my words. But boy, I had a lot of food in me, a lot of candy, a lot of nuts and raisins and pretzels and potato chips, and you name it, just nibbled all day long. Take a drink and follow it with a handful of potato chips. So that kept me going. And one Saturday I decided to go down to the office and get paperwork cleaned up. And, you know, alcoholics, I'm speaking for myself. By the way, my opinions are my own. And I procrastinated, and I left a lot of things stack up, and then I tried to go down there and clear the desk, pay the bills, sort them out or whatever, get them ready to be paid, and it would just move from here to here to here and from here to here to here. It just got shifted back and forth. Maybe 4 of them got taken care of. Well, I started out at 6 o'clock in the morning. By 5 I finished a quart of vodka, and then I had 2 6-packs of beer by 8 o'clock, and then I went across the street and bought another bottle of vodka. And by that time I'm feeling lousy. Now I'm drinking because I feel lousy, not because I'm trying to do the work. And by 12 o'clock I start hearing voices. I start hearing footsteps, and the phone rang. I got dial tone. I walked around the building. I couldn't see anything. And then I heard more footsteps, more voice. I swore somebody was plotting against me, and I took a shotgun and a 45, stuck it in my belt, and prowled around the building with a shotgun. Couldn't find anything. And I finally stood by the desk. It was about 12:30, almost 1 o'clock. And I'm just scratching my head, wondering what the hell's going on here. And all of a sudden I see snakes and worms coming out of the upper top corner of the office. Snakes and worms like spaghetti out of a can, just coming out of that wall. And I picked up the shotgun. I was just going ready to blow them out. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, hey, there's no hole in that wall, number one. Number two, that same guy that talked about Camarillo, he came to in a padded cell. And I said to him, I think that's where you're going. You got a problem. And that's when I admitted to my innermost self, and all by myself, nobody coaching me, that I had a problem. That's when I realized that I had a problem with alcohol. Needless to say, the hallucinations continued, and the phone rang again. It was my wife. She wondered what the hell I was doing there this time of the morning, like 1 o'clock. And then I started babbling like a baby. She knew there was something wrong. Okay, no, never mind, she said, leave the snakes alone and I'll be down there and pick you up. Because I don't remember what the hell I told her. And you know, when she, later on we talked to her, she walked into that office. She had the key and she walked into that office, and I had the shotgun, the double-barrel old Parker, and the 45 with 7 rounds in the magazine. And I could have blown her head off, because I just got through telling her, there's people in the office, I'm going to blow their heads off. And then there was the snakes. And she walked in, and God was really in her corner. She never even gave that a second thought. Anyway, we got into the car, and I just laid back, thought, geez, I'll take a nap on the way home. Well, actually, I passed out, because I didn't know what was going on. And she said that all the way home, I screamed to God for help. I cried like a baby and asked, please, God, help me. Please, God, help me. And I'm not a religious nut. I'm a Christian faith, and we believe that Jesus Christ came down here to save us from hell, and God was somebody else out there. But when I screamed to God, I screamed a lot. And then on the way home, we finally made home. I don't remember getting out of the car even going. I hit the sack, and I hadn't been laying in bed 5 minutes, and I had to get up and throw up because I had never thrown up before in my life and due to drinking. And I headed for the bathroom, and I threw up all over the powder and wallpaper and all over the floor, and the bathroom was a mess, and I was crawling around in that mess, hands and knees, screaming to God, please God help me, please God help me. And I mean screamed loud and long, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, I don't remember. It seemed like eternity. Anyway, I finally went to bed. Got up 6 o'clock next morning, made the coffee, got the paper, reading the paper, and all of us, about 20 minutes, all of a sudden it hit me. Hey, I don't have to drink anymore. My desire to drink was removed. And that was April the 20th, 19th of 1974, the morning of April the 20th. And it's been 16 years, 4 months, and 20 days since my last drink. And I haven't had a desire to drink. And we've been through a lot of things in my early sobriety. And the reason I screamed out to God, I wanted God himself. I didn't want to fool around with his kid, Jesus Christ, because he's just down here, he's another earthling. And you know, how that came out that way, I have no idea. All I can remember, I got to go way up on top. Please God help me. And it worked. So this miracle number 1 here, and miracle number 2 was my obsession to drink was removed. And I had a recent miracle which I'll talk about, since I'm talking about miracles. I've had a restricted artery in one of my pipes since about 18 or 19 years. There's a blockage of some kind, I don't know what it is. And for 18 years I've been trying to do an artery transplant. We'll take one from your leg down here and cut you open, put it in here, take that one out, put a new one in. I said, no, it won't be new, it'll be second hand. No, never knew it last, it'll work. So 18 years I've been resisting them. Because every time I got into strenuous, it got little by little got worse. A short walk or uphill or steep slope or stairways, I'd get a burning feeling in here, short of air, gasping for air, and this pain would start getting worse. And if I did any kind of running like a short distance, that pain would come back. Well, since the 1st of December, since the 1st of '89, going back now, I've noticed that when I did anything strenuous, I didn't have any pain or burning or running out of air. And I was just aware of it faintly, as if, well, gee, maybe I'm a little better because I took off 50 pounds and have kept it off for 50 years. I hope not, 10 years. So I thought it was due to that. But I did an annual physical that I take, it was on 16th of September of '89, and this guy checked me on the treadmill, the heart monitor, the stethoscope, and we went twice as fast on the treadmill, twice as long, and twice as steep. No sign of a blip on that screen or the tape. And after he finally stopped it, he go 9 minutes instead of the 4.5 minutes that we went. No sign of pain, no gasping for nothing. And he checked me with the stethoscope for a good 45 minutes, kept listening, and finally announced to me that he says, you've had a natural arterial bypass gotten around that blockage, he says, because everything vital checked normal. But I hear funny noises, he said. He's heard about this happening in medical circles, been written up on it, but you rarely ever see one that actually see one. So the first thing he proposed was put me in the hospital for 2 or 3 days and run some extensive tests. He says it's only $1,000 and Medicare will pay for it. I said, Doc, I'm not going to screw around butchering up what God's took care of. I said, it's perfect as far as I'm concerned, and you're not about to cut me open, because I may not get off your table. So that's where I left it. But I do feel better. The program has taught me how to live. The early part of my sobriety, first 2 years, was pretty tough because I was beginning to feel myself, I was beginning to feel who I was, and I was beginning to realize that my wife stuck by me, and we decided to go to marriage counseling. And this marriage counselor didn't know anything about alcoholism. In fact, we went a little bit before my sobriety. So we went for quite a few weeks, a few months, and finally I was telling her about Louise's bitchy-witchy ways and things like that, and then she would tell her, and then she in turn would tell her. She'd be the relay point. Well, this one day she said, she sat right next to her. Why didn't you tell her? But, you know, I was so uncommunicative that I looked at her and I started crying. I couldn't talk. I couldn't open my mouth. And I think the basic thing behind that was the fact that I had fear of making a mistake. The perfectionism within me said, you don't keep opening your mouth because you're liable to say the wrong thing. And invariably during my drinking days, I would say the wrong thing. She'd just go into a rage. And so just to avoid that, I would either get the hell out of the house or not come home or try and not aggravate her. So it took a while for us to get used to that communications, because the same thing can happen later on. Then our visits to this council became further and further apart. It was every week, sometimes twice a week, then it was every other week, then every other 2-3 weeks, then every other month, and every month. It was just gradual cutting loose. And in doing that, we were able to communicate. And sometimes I used to tell her things that I didn't want to tell her, but I had to tell her, because certain things you do irritate me. Please don't do them. And she took heed. And it was the same thing with her. Many times she'd say something to me, and she'd say in a tone of voice that carried a lot of anger. This is early stage anger that she had. And eventually we walked through this, so we did not get divorced. In fact, what she did was, how we wound up with this counselor, she gave me 2 cards, one for the attorney and one for the counselor. She says there's going to be choices up to you. She was willing to go through a divorce if I chose to go and give up the house and everything. And the fact is, she turned it over to God at that time. She didn't know it. So I looked at these 2 cards, and I knew, geez, this attorney, I knew damn well they're going to cost a lot of money. And this gal here, we've been going there shortly there, $25 or $30 a trip, whatever. Well, I think I'll try this one first. I can always go back to this one. So it was a dollar decision that I took rather than a moral or a physical or emotional decision. So that's where we went from the counseling, less and less and less. We carried the ball on ourselves, and then having a sponsor helped a lot. And she had her sponsor, and I had mine. And by the way, I've had 5 sponsors, and all 5 of them died 1 year along each way. Some of them overlapped, and I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing to these guys? And then for 5 years, I didn't have a sponsor. And then finally, I got a sponsor that's younger than I am, but he's about 65. By the way, Thanksgiving Day, if I live that long, I'll be 81 years old. And hopefully that I will live to see that. This sponsor here recently had a surgery. He had cancer of the esophagus and the upper stomach. And the guy that he sponsors, the doctor that was doing the surgery, is his baby. So the guy says, I have a pretty good reason to keep this guy alive. So it turned out after the surgery was successful, and after he got recovered and all, he talked about the chances of survival was exactly 5%. He said, you're one of the 5 that made it. 95% of them don't make it. It's a last-ditch way that we have no choice. Either go in there and hope the guy makes it, or he's going to die anyway. So during that period of his recovery and surgery, about 10 or 12 of us that he sponsors as a group and individually, we got together, we prayed. You can't believe how we prayed for this guy. I mean, we prayed. And I said, God, please, God, you've taken 5 away from me. Don't take the 6th one now. And I really prayed, and he came through it. And I'm firmly convinced that the prayers had a lot to do with his recovery. And by the way, he's quite a step study guy, and he's taught me and all of us a lot of things about the steps. I've got a few minutes here. I'd like to talk a little bit about them. One of the steps that is my favorite is the 3rd step. Just like I made a decision when Vince asked me to speak, I had to make a decision, yes or no. And then to come here, I had to make a decision. Do I yes or no, or do I call him up and cancel out? So I have a decision to make all day long, everything. Do I get in the car and go to the store or not? I mean, there's just many decisions. That's when we turn our will and our life over to care of God. Each time we make a decision, because we have to be guided by our God. Each one of us has our own particular God that's within us. And you'll all find, and I have found it myself, that after some years in the program, 5 or 7 or 8 or 10, depends on each individual, you'll know when that God is within you, when you do your daily thing as you're supposed to do. Do God's will as He wants to do it, as He wants you to do it. And just keep Him before you at all times, any time, day or night. Always be aware of the fact there's a God within you, there's a God above you, and they both work together as a team. And sometimes the psychiatric profession calls this the subconsciousness within us, which basically is what it is. And this subconsciousness rules our life. Because when we're asleep, our head can't be active and say, hey, you got to pump blood in this body, but it can't make the heart do this, or the lungs to breathe, or the stomach to churn the food. That's your subconscious mind takes over. When you're asleep, obviously you're out, but your subconscious mind takes over and takes care of you. And that's God at work, basically, because he's down there working. Whether he's shoveling the shit out of your system or taking it out of your brain, which one or the other. Just so he does a good job of it. And he's taken a lot out of both my brain and my gut. And the other one is the 6th and 7th steps. There's a vast difference between those two steps. So many times I've heard, not exactly arguments, but discussion. Oh, they're both the same, they're both the same. Bill Wilson said so, they're both the same. And unfortunately, in the big book, there's only one paragraph covers both of those steps. But you get into the 12 and 12, when he wrote that book, he really elaborated on it. And basically what it amounts to, the step 6 is doing the things we're not supposed to be doing. And that includes all 7 of the deadly sins, which is on page 50 of the 12 and 12. Like pride, ego, greed, lust, anger, sloth, envy, and yeah, that's about it. And any one of those can get us in trouble. Any one of those 7 character defects, and God gave them to us, and we have to learn to handle them. And only God can remove them. You got to work at it and ask God, please help me, please get me out of this, or please solve this problem, whether it involves any one of those 7 deadly sins. There are a lot of other things also. And the 7th step is not doing the things we're supposed to do, just the opposite. And that includes being courteous to people, opening a door for a lady, holding a door in an elevator for the next guy, stopping the car for somebody to come in there and get in front of you, and picking up scrap paper off the floor, taking the dishes out of the dishwasher when they're done, or put them in the dishwasher, cooperate with the husband or wife or whoever you're involved in. And those are the things we can control and we can do, and it makes our life 1,000% better. My wife and I have been, since I've been sober, each giving about 60, 70, 80% to the marriage, each of us. So we have an overlap there. And if everybody followed that same thought of giving more than 50%, you know, this 50-50 is a crock of baloney, because that doesn't always work. Because the 50% you want to give, maybe she don't want or he don't want, or vice versa. So, you know, you could create a count of 50-50. I'm just going to do my 50-50 and that's it. And, you know, so if you don't like to do it anyway. And nobody likes to do chores around the house or the yard or whatever, or take care of the car or service it, or many times I'll take her car to the market and I see, hey, it's down a quarter tank. I just swing by and tank it up and bring it over and not say nothing to her. Next morning, I say, gee, thanks for tanking up my car. See, she appreciates it and says that. And I didn't have to stop and do a lot of thinking, because if I have to think about it, or think, hey, what do I do now to feel good or make her feel good? That don't count. That don't count. You got to do the things just automatically. Just like people in traffic. I don't fight traffic. If a guy wants to get in there, I'll park here, block the thing. It's okay, help yourself. No skin off my ass. It's your ass, not mine. Yeah, just simple things. You'd be surprised how many times people will wave at you, or like that, or women in particular, very courteous. That's more like safe stuff with the men. But unfortunately, that's the way we are. But I know that working those 2 steps has helped my life and made me a better person. I love myself. I like what I am. And I like who I am. And I love my wife more than ever before in our 59 years of marriage. And I find this feeling, this love for one another grows. And the other thing is to communicate with her. If I don't like something she's doing, I'll tell her. And if she doesn't like something I'm doing, she'll tell me. But without anger, without malice. And if she can continue that, and I continue that, we have harmony. And it just has to be a way that you can communicate and let the other person know how you feel. And anyway, I want to again thank Vince for asking me to share here tonight, and thank all of you for being here, and thanks a lot.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. And if that shows up, the gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.